We are live. Welcome to Talking Crit. I am your host, one of your hosts, Eric Tenkar, your bartender in the OSR. With me, as always, on a Wednesday night is none other than Bad Mike Battalato.
Hello, once again, we're being sponsored by Bullet
We are
Rye
not
Whiskey.
we are not being sponsored by any kind of whiskey.
I know. Come
And if
on,
we
sponsors.
Is that the
Sponsor
rye?
me. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, I love the rye. But,
If we
beautiful.
were, it would probably be Tullamore Dew.
I wish we could. I'm trying to get sponsored by booze. It's not
Proper
happening.
12. And with us tonight, by special engagement, none other than Jeff Talanian,
Greetings.
Hyperborea Man,
Yes.
astonishing
Yes.
swordsmen and sorcerers of Hyperborea Man. So
We just saw this guy. Okay, first of all, we just had him on the show like 2 months ago.
Right.
And then a month ago, we just saw him at the con, North Texas.
Right.
So this is maybe too much Talanian for 1 year.
can you
for
have
2 months.
too much Talanian?
This is a Talanian summer, man.
Hey, I broke the news with you guys that I was doing
You
a
did.
third edition of my game. I gave
Yeah.
you guys the scoop.
And,
and I think we
it's
actually
doing-
said we'd bring you back, so I guess we brought
Yeah,
you back.
yeah, we did. And I'm looking right now. The Kickstarter's doing great. You have 3 more days to go.
Yep.
You're at 149.5. We're going to push you to 150 tonight. I have a goal. We're going to push to
There,
150.
there.
Very
I
nice.
put it up on the screen. Look at that. You can.
Yeah.
And before anybody complains, it's like, but why is it so small? Because my secondary screen is not in the horizontal, but it's in the vertical because it won't fit horizontally, and I use it to read PDFs any case. So that's why when I use a screen share, that's the orientation. Sorry, tough nuggets or whatever. I mean, it is what it is. But actually, more impressive than the 149 is you got over 1,400 backers.
Yeah, it's quite a bit.
huge.
Yeah, it's
That
it's
is
a lot more than I've had in any previous campaign.
Really?
So the game is definitely reaching a new audience. It's broadening to new players. I would say a lot of those players are coming just from feedback that I get. A lot of those players are coming from either a Pathfinder or a 5e background, and they're looking to try something different. They're looking to try a traditional system, but something that maybe plays a little differently. So I guess, with a lot of these people, the sword and sorcery vibe sort of resonates with them. I get a lot of people who look at the art for the game and they'll say, wow, it looks like, Savage Sword of Conan in a role-playing game. And, that's the kind of stuff that I love.
Oh, the art is awesome.
Oh, yeah. Well, playing with that, I just wanted to say that real quick before I forget, because my short-term memory is terrible. I was looking at your Kickstarters today, and so your first Kickstarter, you got $13,000. Yeah, respectable amount for somebody just starting out. It was great. You had the book, you had the box, the books in it with all the paper that used to fly out and get all the money. And then your second print of that got about 60,000.
Yeah.
And now we're looking at 150. This is amazing. I mean, first of all, congratulations on conning people into giving the same money for just another edition over and over again. You could just keep this going for years. But no, I think that's absolutely amazing that you've built up that kind of support over the last however many years we talking.
The first module that we published for it was in 2010, but that was before the game even came out.
Right.
But then the game was published in 2012. So it's been 9 years going.
That's amazing. So I mean, just the amount of growth in your backers, and then also the money that you're bringing in, and that tells me this is a very healthy game system, Jeff. I mean, it seems like it's doing really well, and I don't see necessarily a lot of advertisement for it except for on your Facebook page.
Sure.
You do a lot of conventions, obviously. You do conventions up there, but yeah, considering this came right after COVID also, where we didn't really go to any conventions for a year. I think the response from the gaming OSR community is amazing here.
Oh,
yeah, I've been very impressed. And, and like I said, I think a lot of those customers are coming from different backgrounds. And so a lot of them don't share the same assumptions that the three of us would. So they have a lot of questions that basically lead me to that conclusion pretty quickly, that they're coming from a different sort of background in gaming. So it's great to see all the new blood, and it's awesome that the community is thriving. I'm not much of a 5e player myself. I did play in a campaign for a couple of years, but my buddy that was running it is now running OSE. But so I do appreciate 5th edition very much, because I believe that it has attracted so many new players and brought back old players who hadn't played, and I haven't played in 25, 30 years since I was in college, and I got married and had kids and forgot about D&D. And now they're back because for whatever reason, 5th edition has reached out to a lot of these people. So I think it's great. I think it's, I don't want to sound like a pessimist, but I would say when I was first creating the original box set for this game, and I was writing it on the heels of Gary passing away, and because I had been working on the Castle Zagging project with him, and when he passed away, and as you guys know very well, his widow canceled all his works, I was left with no work at that point in writing. Right. So when I started to create this game, I was doing it under the assumption that it would be a sort of a part-time gig, that I made 1,200 box sets. And I said to myself, I'll be selling these for the next 20 years. I'll sell one every couple of months or something like that. It'll be great. It'll be fun to connect with gamers. But little did I know that I would sell out in 3 years and then do a second edition, and that one, and print more than twice as many, and that one would sell out even faster. So, I mean, I went from thinking that our demographic, guys in their 40s, 50s, and going into this, and guys in their 60s, I thought that we were the last generation for tabletop gaming. I really thought that 10, 11, 12 years ago. I thought that, that we would be it, but it's great to see all this new blood coming into the hobby, which is really encouraging.
Oh, yeah. I mean, go ahead, Mike.
Well, as much as Eric and I bag on WotC, Eric and I will say this all day long. We both say it, is that that a rising tide, all that.
All ships.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in this case, it's definitely helped the fact that it's become the most popular version of D&D ever printed. It's the Starbucks effect, right? I mean, everybody, the OSR has benefited. Everybody out there has benefited. And so while we give them a hard time, for different reasons, the fact that they have made this into extremely successful brand,
right,
and have gone beyond the gaming community. I mean, look at stuff like Critical Role and the play, D&D play stuff, that they've gone way beyond just the kind of the nerds and nerds in the back of the room, like when we were growing up, and they've appealed to wide audience, very diverse, and it's helped the hobby as a whole immensely. And I think that's part of the reason your Kickstarter's just kicking ass right now.
Sure,
it's all part of that. And I tell a story all the time. I mean, North Texas, we get people in there all the time that come and we're primarily, we talk about, we're an old school con, but probably half the games we have run there are 5e, and we have a lot of crossover. We have people playing 5e games, and they'll go play some Astonishing Swords and Sorcerers. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to call it Hyperborea from now on, because it's called Hyperborea now. So that's easier for me to say instead of Asher.
Yes.
I'm just going to start calling it Hyperborea. That's what it is. But they'll go play Hyperborea. They'll play a 5e game, or they'll play in Matt Finch's Swords and Wizardry games, and they'll play 5e, or they'll play 5e, and they really want to see what first edition D&D is like. So they'll play in a first edition D&D game. So I love that, because I don't remember that kind of crossover in our maybe our first 5 or 6 conventions, but definitely in our last 5 or 6 conventions, we've had plenty of that crossover.
So are you saying this is the end of the edition wars?
No, not at all. 4E still sucks shit. But and Ty's in the room. Go figure that one out.
Oh, our unofficial legal counsel of the Talking Crit, very unofficial. Hello, Adino. Hello, GM. Oh, hello, man, we got all these people jump in. Hello, Bree. Hello, Russian name that I can't read, or is that Russian? Thanks for coming and seeing. Thanks for coming up. Remember to push the subscription button, because we are on our goal to hit 1,000 in the next month or so. I'm just going to put it out there, Eric. I want to hit 1,000 before the end of August. I'm going to say it right now.
I think we could do it.
I'm
happy to say that the listen. There's no way in hell I am ever going to put out anything that comes close to anything that Jeff has put out. But I am happy to say that the sales figures, especially with the OSR Christmas going on, between the affiliate sales and selling Torchlight issue #1 and some of the back catalog, has been going really well. So I'll be able to give away those $500 in drive-through RPG monies without actually hitting any of the savings in the drive-through account, because we're going to probably hit that or come close to it in the month of July between the two. So
yes, so
it's an amazing community. So
your financing of us allows us to have guests like Jeff Talanian on.
No, it doesn't. Jeff does this because he knows we're cheap fucks and we're cheap date.
I PayPal'd him money. Was I not supposed to do that? I guess I messed up. I did not know this.
Get back your $5.75.
Jesus, I'm never going to see that money again. He's going to sell me a bunch of heavy metal T-shirts or something.
Get back your $5.75. Buy a Happy Meal.
Okay, $5.35. Come on, Jeff's worth more than that. I would have sent him way more money than that.
No. Come on, we know Jeff. You know, it's not like we have to bribe him. I mean,
yeah, we know him. He's here every other week. Gosh,
yeah, right.
Well,
because I'm trying to take Bad Mike's job. That's why.
Here, take it. Well, speaking of seeing you every week, though, I was going to say that we saw you during North Texas.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about your North Texas experience. I'm sorry, I'm stepping all over Eric tonight. Eric, I don't.
That's okay.
It's like we haven't done this in a month or something. I feel like
I'm
stepping
Mike,
all over you.
Listen again. I refer to you as my Wednesday night spouse. You are my spouse for 2 hours on a Wednesday, and I know exactly what to expect. I just okay.
Well, if I feel like all over the place tonight too, I'm so excited. I really am excited to have Jeff here. I know that sounds stupid, but I love having Jeff on the show. So I'm
thank you so much. You're too kind.
No,
so my North Texas experience, it was great. It was sort of an experiment for me because I did something that I have not done in, probably 8 or 9 years. I didn't do a booth. I decided I'm gonna see if I can get one of my friends who has a retail booth to carry a bunch of my books, and I just want to run a bunch of games, and I want to play in some games, and I want to have some fun, and that's what I did. And it was it was so nice because it's great to have the publisher's booth, but you're shackled to it the whole con and the whole weekend, and so you miss out on stuff. It may seem not a big deal to you, Mike, because you live in that neck of the woods. But for me, getting out one evening for a Texas barbecue is a great thing. We went to the Hard 8, and it was awesome. And so I ran the same adventure several times. I was running an adventure that I'll be publishing in 2022 called The Vanishing Isles of the Summer King. It's written by Jonathan Bingham, who's a longtime artist for Hyperborea. And he is very much inspired by Michael Moorcock multiverse types of big concept. Jack Kirby, Fourth World, and Michael Moorcock had a love baby, and it was his adventure module. So it's got all those weird and wacky elements to it, and I think the players had a great time. And it was just so fun to reconnect with people after not doing a convention, because it had been since Total Con of the year before since I had done a convention. So we were going on about almost a year and a half of no convention. So that was really lame, right? So it was great, but I will say that it was kind of weird not seeing Doug, the face of the North Texas Con there, so can you give us an update on how he's doing?
I can give you a great update because I actually saw Doug on Monday for the first time in 2 months. Eric knows this. I've talked to Eric about it, and I did announce it on North Texas page, but he's at home now, finally. He was supposed to come home this week. He got them to release him. He got the hospital to release him a few days early because it was his birthday Sunday, and he wanted to be home for his birthday. So I was a little worried initially about him coming home.
All right.
Home early, but he was scheduled at home. He's we go. We got
Uh-oh.
reset there. Doug's at home recovering. He looked kind of tired. He's lost close to 100 pounds. But he was like me. He was really overweight. So 100 pounds for him, he's about 220, which is his fighting weight. So that's good. He's just going to have a long recovery ahead of him. They took out most of his intestine. He has a colostomy bag now. There is talk that they may be able to rebuild. They said to take out part of his. Sorry if I get too personal here, but I mean, I'm of the school that let people know what's going on rather than just hiding things. And so I'm just going to
sure. My wife's a nurse, so I've heard it all.
And Doug does. I mean, I've talked to Doug. I've told everybody. He doesn't care. But they took out part of his bowel, but apparently it's part that they can reconstruct. And eventually, if he wants to go in for second surgery, they can reconstruct that, and hopefully he won't be have to use a colostomy bag. But he's doing a lot better, and his prognosis is when he recovers will be good because they did remove all the cancer that was actually in his intestine, and along with the part of the intestine that burst on him. And he's just like anybody that's been in the hospital for 9 weeks. I mean, he has to learn how to walk again. He was eating very small amounts of food when I was there. He was eating some Rice Krispies, and he can't really have fiber or anything that's really heavy. But I'm amazed to see him at home. I mean, he was on deathbed. He really was. I mean, he was on, a deathbed the week of the con, and we were all, it was upsetting because, that's his baby and he wasn't there. And I could tell it just killed him not to be there. Yeah. So one of the things he told me Monday was that he hasn't watched any of the con yet because a lot of it was filmed. He hasn't seen the midnight auction or any of the fun stuff. So I said, okay, well, that's going to be, so I was kind of giving him a sneak preview of some of the stuff that might be filmed. I don't exactly know what he's going to watch. I know that I think David, his son, filmed a bunch of different games and stuff. So he's all excited about watching that because he hasn't, I think he said he hadn't opened a computer in 2 months. He's done a little bit on his tablet, but he's really been out of the loop. But yeah, thanks for asking. And so he's doing really good. And yeah, you're right. It was tough to have the convention without him. And I said, I kept saying like, man, I wish you were there because everybody was having such a good time because we had a convention for a year and a half. I mean, There was no conventions, really larger conventions since TotalCon in February of 2020. There was nothing, 2020, there was nothing in 2020. And then coming into 2021, TotalCon had to cancel. GaryCon had to cancel. So there really were no conventions at all for a year and a half. And everybody, you could tell everybody was very excited to be there. There was a lot of smiling faces. People were just happy to be out and just see everybody and just hang out and just, it was just amazing the goodwill that was all through that convention from everybody just, finally be able to get out of the house, I guess.
Yeah, I think for a lot of us who enjoy the scene of the smaller to mid-sized cons, so I'm talking about, the size of yours and TotalCon going up to, say, the size of like Gamehole Con.
Right,
so the smaller to medium-sized cons. And those of us who enjoy going to those, we're going to an average of 3, maybe 4 per year, right? So a lot of us are connecting at these points every 3 or 4 months. And it's really nice because it's like you create this sort of, these friendships and these bonds, playing games together. One of the great things that I've always found about tabletop role-playing games at conventions is you can sit down with a group of what's essentially strangers. You play this game, you share this experience, you have teamwork, and you have a common goal, and you're creatively collaborating together. You're doing all this stuff, and by the end of the 4-hour session, a lot of times, 1, 2, 3, sometimes the whole table, it's like your old friends because you've shared this fun experience together. And sometimes those shared experiences, when something really wild and insane happens in the game that's really fun and memorable, you connect about it as the years go on and the conventions go on, and you're chatting about it and you're still remembering it, and it's just this great. We should mention that Gary Gygax's birthday was yesterday, so it's like it's. I like to think of it as the gift that Gary gave us, right?
Yes.
it's that we share these bonds and friendships over gaming.
Oh, definitely, and people forget that. I mean, the one thing that we all have in common, if we're going to these conventions or we're part of these communities, is the love of gaming. Doesn't matter what your political background is, your historical background is, ethnic, gender, doesn't make a difference. We're all gamers, and that's what brings us together. That's the bond.
Right.
I love doing all these conventions because, again, it's the size. I don't think you can say the same thing about Gen Con. I haven't gone since, I don't know, 94. But when you go to places like, you say, North Texas, Gamehole, TotalCon, ShireCon, GaryCon, you get to recognize people, even if maybe you don't get a chance to really talk with them, but you recognize faces, and it's like coming back to a community. So you have that familiarity without even sometimes knowing why they are familiar to you.
Right.
And that's, really, it's spot on. Now, I'm going to catch up on some of the comments here. So,
Sure.
Dino says that this is the first Kickstarter he has ever blocked. But back.
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
Thank you, Adino.
And he's excited for it.
Oh, that's very kind of you.
Poor guy. He's going to be so disappointed.
No, he's not.
Oh, no, he won't. No, you won't. You'll be. It's amazing. It's an amazing game you built, and it's an amazing world, too. So, no, it's going to be great.
Ty backed it, but he preferred the longer name. But even the longer name became Ash anyway. So
Yes.
It's so... Jack the 7-1, welcome... Oh, Jax. Welcome to the Ash Revolution, folks.
All right, so I just cheated. I wanted you to get to 500 tonight, and I'm sorry, 150,000, and
Yeah.
I had not made my pledge yet. I just made my $120 pledge, so hopefully that will.
If we
pop
do
up
get
pretty
to
quick.
$150,000, that is our next stretch goal that we're unlocking, and we're going to put a
nice.
second satin ribbon in each of the hardback books. So each hardback will have a pair of satin ribbons.
Oh, nice!
Oh, nice. Well,
Yes.
I'm already in for 225, so I
He's outdoing me again. There he goes. So that big
He's in for
time,
the whole kitchen sink.
that big time money that he makes doing this job.
Right?
You know what? This
Yeah.
is one of those Kickstarters that Rach wouldn't give me like you're doing how much? She's like, oh, it's Jeff. Oh yeah. You're gonna get it. Richard said he backed the 2E. Now he's backing for 3E.
Oh, thank you, Richard.
Jack said he backed as soon as the Kickstarter dropped. Yes, John Miller's comment, which I saw before, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was funny. I like that.
2 more editions for Hyperborea, and we'll catch up with D&D.
And you're going to get there a lot sooner than D&D did too.
Yeah, because
it took them 40 years, 50 years. You're going to be able to get that in like 15.
I really don't see a 6th edition coming anytime soon. We've had that discussion. I just suspect it's going to be.
Come on, man. He's on the money train now. This thing's making him bucks.
Money train.
All right. Oh, you're at 149,600 because I just threw 120 on there. So yeah, you're getting closer. You're getting closer. Well, it's worth it. Your products are quality.
We
quality
will get
products.
there. Thank you so much.
As a matter of fact, a story. So when your first one came out, I remember you submitted for the Three Castles Award, and you were a poor struggling publisher back then. And
Sure,
I can't remember what the cost was on each box set, but the Three Castles Award, unfortunately, you have to submit 3 copies and then another 5 copies for the judges. And so we're talking. So in your case, we were talking a commitment of 8 box sets, which I don't know what they ran back then. But I remember you frankly told me, like, Mike, I don't think I can afford it. I mean, that's a lot to put out for an award that I might not win, which spoiler, you didn't win, but
I know.
So I believe I helped you out there. I think I just bought them. I said, I'll just buy
them.
Yeah.
I remember that because you told me like, oh, well, you don't have to, you can send one less because I'm going to buy one.
It was just, because it was just too, we had to have that. I mean, it was one of the best things that came out that year, and it would have been ridiculous not to have that as one of the finalists in the Three Castles Awards.
Oh, thank you.
So I was very happy to help out there.
I was hoping to get it because I loved that little statue. The thing was great.
Well, you need to submit this. Okay, well, you can submit for Hyperborea, and you should, because the new statue is going to be a Diesel original sculpt that we are
wow.
we're going to unveil not next year but the year after, because I think next year is our last the original Three Casts Award, and I think starting in the next year we'll have the Diesel Sculpt. So definitely, yes, you definitely need to submit Hyperborea.
Sure.
Because
Right.
maybe this time you'll pay off the right judges, and
Right.
you'll finally win. You never know.
Morgan has a question. Will this be compatible with 2E?
Yes. So it's second edition, third edition going back to second edition, and even the original edition of the game. The game is backwards compatible. I would say that it's somewhere around 95% compatible. So all the old adventures will work perfectly fine with it. Like a customer was asking me the other day how exactly that works. Like, how can he buy an old adventure? He said, because I think his comment is he'd rather wait and get updated third edition versions of the adventures in the future. And so what I was explaining to him was that in the stat block for a monster, their AC and their hit dice have not changed. One of my examples was, like, say you have a spell, and maybe there's like a humanoid shaman in the adventure, and that humanoid shaman has some spells. Well, in the third edition, if one of those spells, if its duration is longer or its range is shorter or something like that, it doesn't matter in the module, because those things are not spelled out in the module. It just says that he has the fireball spell or something like that, or he has a detect magic spell. It doesn't matter that ranges that something may have been tweaked a little bit in the core game. That the only thing that is changed are very small, minor things that able to retain it mostly compatible. Think of like the old Call of Cthulhu editions. Prior to 7th edition of Call of Cthulhu, it was really hard to tell the difference between the editions. If you really combed through it, you could start to spot things and say, oh, okay, they changed this or they changed that. But at the core of it, it wasn't like when D&D went from 3rd edition to 4th edition, where they changed the language,
Right.
of the game.
Yeah, that was one of the great appeals about the Chaosium system, was that you could use 1st edition Call of Cthulhu with everything up to the 7th edition, 6.5 or whatever edition.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I've been very slow to adapt the
Me too.
7th edition.
I've never got 7th yet.
The other editions all work so well, and they each have their pros and cons. I like every edition of Call of Cthulhu. Probably not 1st edition. The first couple editions were really rough. If you look back on them, they had a lot of, I think, issues. But yeah, that's a good comparison, because you really like to be backwards compatible. It's funny that as successful game system as D&D has been, it's not entirely backwards compatible with some of the editions. It's mainly third and fourth edition. They're absolutely not backwards compatible with anything.
Right. You can say it for 1st and 2nd edition, I believe. And of course you can, when you look at the whole string of basic D&D, when you go from Moldvay to Menser's version and Rules Cyclopedia, that's all basically the same game.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much Holmes. I would say that the jump from Holmes to Moldvay, there were a lot of things with like ability scores and stuff like that changed. But in essence, I think the basic forms of D&D retained the same language.
I think Lou had something here interesting. As a small publisher, I always want to go back and retouch books I printed. What criteria do you use to say, yeah, it's time to relaunch? So that's a good question. Why did you decide to relaunch this time?
Well, the initial reason was because the 2nd edition book had sold out. And it sold out quicker than I had anticipated, which is, a good problem to have. I was getting a lot of support from, customers from around the world, retailers, and so the book sold out. So my initial plan was to reprint that book, and I thought to myself, I'm just going to suck it up and spend a little money and do the book over. So then you start to tinker, right? So I started to think like, oh, I'd like to, if I'm going to do a new printing, I'd like to commission some new character class art, and to freshen it up a little bit, give another artist's perspective. And then you start to think like, well, maybe I should get a new cover art. So then it's just art right now, so it's fine. It's still the same game. But then you start to look at other things like, well, there were a lot of spells and magic items in all these modules we've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years. Some of those spells that are buried in appendices, those should be in the book now. So you start to add in some spells. You start to add in some magic items. I'm looking at the monk class, and I'm saying, well, I've gotten a lot of complaints about the monk over the years. I've gotten the most complaints about it. I should really change a few things about it. And, a lot of the things that people are telling me do make sense, and I should tweak it a little bit. And so I'm changing things, and I start to clarify language. And before you know it, there's been enough done that it's not a reprint anymore. It is essentially evolving into a new edition. But like I said, a backwards compatible edition, but yet it became obvious to me at that point where it was time to say like, okay, this is a new edition of the game, and that's basically it.
So if you're, let's say somebody who hasn't, let's say that they like D&D and they play 5th edition, they don't really play the old editions. What's your pitch for Hyperborea? What's your selling point on Hyperborea? If somebody said, well, why would I want to play your game over, let's say, 5th edition? Well, what's the difference there?
Well, the biggest difference, of course it's all tabletop role playing games, and it's fantasy based. But what separates Hyperborea role playing game from a lot of its contemporaries is it is truly sword and sorcery themed. So this game is inspired by the fiction of Robert E. Howard, Clark Ashton Smith, H.P. Lovecraft, and a lot of the other pulp writers, Jack Vance and Abraham Merritt, Michael Moorcock, Carl Edward Wagner. All of those authors sort of evoke a certain type of flavor with their fiction. So what we've tried to do with the world of Hyperborea is evoke that sort of tone and mood. So what we've done with this game is build it in such a way that the game rules and the setting are married together. So the classes, the different cultures, the flora and fauna, the religions, all of them are very much in step with that type of pulp fiction theme. Mm-hmm. So a lot of modern games, what they will do is they will create a general rule system, and that rule system can be then applied to various settings. You can use it with different fantasy worlds, different maybe even not a fantasy world. Maybe it can be applied to a science fiction, game. So and a lot of people would tell you that, a generic system is the best bet, because if you make it really flexible, then you can use it with all these different things. Mm-hmm. Kind of took the opposite approach with this game. It really just sort of built it, decided we're going, full bore with this pulp fiction theme and flavor, and we're going to build the game around that. So it's really tailored to it. It's dark, it's brutal. It evokes all that type of flavor to it.
Well, it's interesting because if you look, even though in Gary's appendix in, he listed pretty much almost all the authors that you just said are inspiration. D&D, if you look at the roots of it, it's really more of a Tolkien-ish kind of Middle Ages, elves, dwarves type of game, rather than a pulp, the kind of the grim and grittiness. I mean, you love Clark Ashton Smith like I do. His stuff is it's grim, man. It's rough. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of happy endings in those stories. And honestly, Conan's, and obviously Lovecraft has no happy endings, but even Conan's stuff it's pretty tough stuff, and D&D doesn't necessarily, it didn't reflect that in the first years. It reflected more of a Tolkien roots, where hey, you're a party of adventurers, you come together, you do stuff. So even though some of the inspiration, I mean, obviously D&D has a huge Jack Vance inspiration because the whole magic system fancy. But other than that, you didn't really necessarily see a lot of Conan in D&D. You didn't see a lot of Lovecraft, Clark Ashton Smith, those kind of things. And I think that's cool to have a game based around more of, I guess you would call, the pulp elements than the high fantasy elements.
Sure, yeah. And it's kind of funny too when in times that I talked to Gary about it, and you could see in a lot of his Q&As that he used to do, like at Dragon's Foot and EN World and stuff like that. When you would talk to him about that history, it seems that he wasn't a huge fan of Tolkien or the really high fantasy stuff. He was kind of bending to the will of a lot of his peers that he was playing with back then, that they wanted these things in the game. So he just kind of like, okay, well, we can put them in there, but it wasn't his favorite stuff. His favorite stuff was Fritz Leiber and Jack Vance and stuff like that he was, really into. Even in his final years, one of the last times I went to his house, he was rereading the Conan stuff, and he was a lifelong Vance fan. I actually talked to him one time. I asked him if Dying Earth was his favorite Vance stuff, because the obvious correlation to D&D over the years. And he actually said that it wasn't his favorite, that his favorite Jack Vance series was the Demon Princes.
Very cool. Yeah, it's very interesting. I read that. I think I saw the appendix N on that, and I thought, oh, I'll try this. And I had a hard time with that as a youngster reading the Demon Princes.
They're kind of like detective novels in a sort of way. It's like planet hopping.
It's very, very revenge centered. It's about if I remember, gosh, I've been so many years since I read it. It's a kid who's, I think his father is killed by, I can't remember now, but he has to hunt down these 5 demon princes and kill them all. Right. And so every book is basically he goes and makes his demon. And he makes these plans, these really elaborate plans to take them out. And so it's very interesting. It's because
they're all incredibly clever. And so outsmarting them is one of the hardest things to do. So I think it was a fascinating series. And also the other, what may actually be my favorite Jack Vance series was the Planet of Adventure,
which are very good. Yeah,
I love those.
That to me seems almost a more D&D kind of inspiration than the other stuff we mentioned. But Planet of Adventure is really good.
Yeah, that's great stuff.
Well, that's interesting because I we're sitting here talking. I forgot that out of all present gamers, you probably had Gary's ear more than anybody. So I should just ask you, what did Gary think about Tolkien and this, that? Because it's really interesting if you read his old stuff, especially when he was getting into fights with people in the old fanzines and stuff. He vehemently denied, no, this isn't Tolkien. This isn't Tolkien. Even though he used hobbits and ents and a lot of stuff, and I always wondered,
Balrogs.
I mean, how much of that was him being truthful? It's really not Tolkien. How many of him was just not wanting to get sued by the Tolkien estate and said, "Oh, no, I wasn't thinking anything about Tolkien when I did hobbits and ents." And so that's interesting, your insight on that, because I always thought that no matter he doth protest too much, it seems to me like there is definitely a Tolkien-ish vibe and all. And especially the modules, the first few modules that came out of the first series, the Giant series and the things like that. It's very much built along a quest of a group of adventurers go on this quest, and they eventually. If you look at the original GDQ modules, they go on this giant long quest and defeat the Loth, the Queen of Spiders, and a lot of the other early D&D adventures kind of followed the same kind of quest format. So,
I absolutely agree. But I think that I think it may have been a combination of things. I think that yes, it makes sense that he wasn't going to say it is a facsimile of Lord of the Rings. He could say that for legal reasons. He wasn't going to. But I also do think that he was a little bit defensive about it because it wasn't his favorite stuff, but it was like everybody else's favorite stuff. back then it was during the time of, people spray painting Frodo lives under a bridge,
It sells. You gotta market to what sells, not always what you want if you want to be successful.
Yeah, the 70s they had another big. There was a huge back in college in the 60s. There was a huge Tolkien thing, and then that happened again in the 70s. There was another edition issued of the Lord of the Rings books. I remember that was huge. I got those for Christmas one year, and that was another big, huge Tolkien, rising. And that's when the Avalon Hill SPI game, Lord of the Rings came out. So yeah, it was on everybody's mind, definitely. And the Bakshi cartoon came out, I think, in 1979, 80, right.
Yeah, right around there. Yep. And I started off with those white paperbacks that have those sort of sepia tone painted covers,
which are, by the way, are collectible and great. You could those are actually worth some money now, Jeff.
Really?
That I found
mine out. Beat to all bloody hell. I think I had to tape the covers back on.
Yeah, yours aren't worth any money now. Sorry,
but they were readers.
Yeah, so that was a so yeah, I can understand him being a little defensive about that. Like, look, I created this game. It's based on a lot because he was a voracious reader. He read all this stuff, and everybody's just focusing on this one aspect, Tolkien. And the fact that this is it has hobbits. Because I know as a kid, that's what I used to get my friends to play. I did two things. I would tell them it's because we loved Conan the Barbarian. We love the Marvel comics. We love the original story. I'd say it's like Conan the Barbarian. Oh, okay, they're in that. And I'd say it's like Lord of the Rings. You have this party of adventurers, and they all get together. And then those are the two common points of reference that you would have trying to get an average person to play with you.
Yeah, because when you can have a player character adventure party and it has a couple of humans, a halfling, a dwarf, and an elf, it's starting to feel a lot like Lord of the Rings. It's feeling like it seems like a fellowship of some sort.
Let's not call it that, though. Now, Rutger argues that the mercenary angle to D&D was pretty swords and sorcery.
Yeah, right on. I agree with him. It was because, you look at it and it's not necessarily about saving the world. Well, that I guess that all depends on your dungeon master, because your dungeon master is not necessarily limited to what's published. Your dungeon master is going to make up a campaign world and give adventure quests that may end up being in that sort of vein. But the underlying tone for AD&D, it's like, you're getting experience points for treasure, right? So you're trying to acquire treasure. You're getting experience points for killing monsters. And so you're gaining these things, but you're also spending these things again. So, and as you're gaining these experience points for killing monsters and acquiring treasure, you are growing in power. So yeah, it does. Yeah, I would definitely agree with Rutger Hauer 666 on that one.
Well, Lou asked here, which is I don't know if we've ever asked you this before, but what was the most surprising thing you learned about Gary through your interactions with him?
The most surprising thing, I would say, when I started working for Gary, I knew that, that the big days of his being the head honcho at TSR and the major man behind all of that were several years behind him at that point, because I worked for Gary from 2005 to 2008. And a couple of things stood out to me working for him. I guess I was under the impression, and maybe it was somewhat true, that he was harder to work for back in the day, and that he could be tough to satisfy, and tough and not willing to take suggestions and things like that. These are little things that I was kind of picking up on. But what I found when I worked for him was that he was very open to suggestion. He might shoot it down, but he would listen to you. He would always give you an ear, and he would value your advice and suggestions. And sometimes he would agree, and sometimes he would disagree, and he would always tell you why. And I found it, really interesting. And then from a personal standpoint, I was really impressed by how he handled the public at various conventions, and how he treated all gamers like they were his peers and his friends. People coming up to him and telling him, I learned how to read through D&D, or I met my future husband or wife through D&D, and all these people who want to share their stories with him, and he's got lines of people who want to share these stories with him, and he treats them all like they're important. And I thought that was really cool, because I have met some famous people before in the past, and I'm sure you guys have as well. And not all of them, some of them can sort of ruin your perception of them, and it can sort of carry over where you're not so much a fan anymore of them because you saw how they carry themselves personally. So professionally and personally, I was very impressed by him.
Yeah, Eric and I talk about sometimes that sometimes you don't want to meet your heroes. And we've been to so many conventions at this point. We've pretty much met everybody that could be considered one of our heroes. And yeah, sometimes we won't release any names, but sometimes we get disappointed. We're like, dang, what does that person have to be like that? But one of the great things about our hobby is most of the people that we meet are just as cool as you would think. They're like Gary. They're very humble about their part they played in this huge. Whoa, we lost Eric there. They're very humble about this part they played in D&D becoming this giant monolithic game, and so they downplay their, oh yeah, I just did this one module, I'm really not responsible. And that's when you know that they're the good guys. It's the guys that maybe take a little bit too much credit, that you're like, okay, calm down a little bit. You were writing at a time when anything put out by TSR would sell 100,000 copies. So just because you wrote module X doesn't mean it was that great a module. It just came out at absolutely the right time. So
sure, and I've met a lot of outstanding gentlemen who contributed to the hobby during that time through these conventions, like through North Texas and through Gary Con and through Total Con, and in a lot of ways, we celebrate Gary's life when we do Gary Con every year. It's a celebration of the hobby that he created, and it's this gaming camaraderie, like we talked about earlier. But it's also a celebration of all his peers during those days, because each one of them had either a small bit part or a much greater contributing part to making it what it was. So as much as we celebrate Gary and how much he did for the hobby, there are some other greats out there. When I was at North Texas, I had the opportunity to sit down with the sons of Dr. Holmes, who did the original basic set back in 1978. Mike, is that right? 78 or 79? Yeah. And so it was so great to talk to those guys and learn stuff about their dad, because that was the first D&D that I had when I was young, and I studied that book over and over and over. And I had it with B2. That was the first version that I had. And studying the Keep on the Borderlands and studying that booklet, I really was infatuated with it. And it really was my a big part of why I'm still doing this stuff today. And it's just great connecting with everybody at the cons.
So Morgan asked, can you talk about the weird fantasy versus mythos fantasy for swords and sorcery in the game, and how much of each code is the flavor of the game? So he broke it up exactly. I guess you could say you're talking Clark Ashton Smith, Lovecraft, and Howard. That's that's the three different forms of fantasy. That's kind of cool. He broke it down like that, but that's basically what we're looking at.
Sure. So one of the things I like to talk about when it comes to that sort of thing is we take our various inspirations that we have when we're building a campaign setting. And so for me, I started off with what I like to think of as the big three of Lovecraft, Smith, and Howard. So I would say setting-wise, the land of Hyperborea is very much inspired by Smith's writing. Obviously his Hyperborea stuff, but it's also very much inspired by Zothique, because it has that sort of end of time. The sun is a red giant bloated, and it's the end of times, which I would which I would, I'm sure many people have talked about this before, but Jack Vance's Dying Earth stuff, I think that he was, influenced by what Smith was doing with Zothique. But Smith doesn't really get as much recognition as Vance. Did I lose you guys?
And for those who don't know, that Smith had Zothique, Averone, and Hyperborea.
Poseidonus.
So and they all have, they all have kind of their own little themes that go with them. So
sure, yeah. The French countryside of the Averone stories, it's sort of a dark Gothic type of tone to it that's different than some of his other stuff. But getting back to Morgan's question, so I would say the lands of the setting itself is very much inspired in its religions by Smith and Lovecraft. And I would say where the sword and sorcery, the Howard type of inspiration comes in, and the Fritz Leiber and stuff like that, it's really in the heroes, because it's like like the hero's tale. We have these different peoples who have come from different times and lands. Some of them having real world analogs, others being mythological, like Atlanteans and Amazons and the Hyperboreans themselves. So it's kind of like, you're making a big stew, right? And you're finding what's in your refrigerator, and you're putting stuff in there. And that's kind of what I did with this. I took a lot of my favorite elements. My version of the Hyperborean race is sort of inspired by Moorcock's Melnibonians. They have sort of those airs to them. So it's really just, you find all these combinations of all these different things that you love, whether it's in novels, movies, television shows, all your different influences. You throw it all together, and you come up with this sort of setting that blends the elements that you enjoy. And as it so happened with me, with all the Hyperborea stuff, there are a lot of other people who have these same tastes that I do, which is, a really fun thing to learn.
Nice.
So, speaking of something that you and I have actually talked about at conventions, when it comes to a lot of the pulp writers, there's been a backlash in the last decade or so, maybe even before that, about some of the not so good thoughts these guys had. I know we've pretty much accepted the fact that Lovecraft was pretty much an overt racist. I mean, there's just no sugarcoating it.
Yeah.
Howard, to an extent, was, although Howard had approached it from a different angle. He believed in the noble savage trope, kind of more than these people are just trash. No. They're okay if they're back in their place where they belong, but they're not okay here. Whereas Lovecraft was, I don't. The main thing I've heard about Clark Ashton Smith is he might have been misogynistic, but I don't. Smith doesn't seem to come to the same criticism in those.
He's very quiet and reserved, I think.
But so when people, when they bring that up, like, oh, well, your game's based on these guys. These guys are, they're all racist and they hate everybody. I mean, what's your reply to that? How do you deal with that kind of criticism?
I mean, it's really the most the simple answer. Really, it's the fiction itself is the main inspiration. I don't really, when I first got into these writers at a young age and they really started inspiring me, I didn't know anything about their personal lives. I was just gravitated to this fiction. I loved, my old Frank Frazetta cover Ace paperbacks of Robert E. Howard. Mm-hmm. And so those stories and that artwork, and then getting into stuff like Savage Sword of Conan and all the different Bronze Age sword and sorcery type tales and comic books that were coming out in the 70s, and a lot of the horror stuff. I really loved that stuff, and I still do today. And so my point being, I'm not trying to be evasive on the question, is I really didn't pay much attention to it. And it really wasn't until deep into my adult life when I started to realize it. I bought the books that were that it's a 2-volume set that compiles the letters exchanged between Lovecraft and Howard.
I have it right here. It's probably buried into something. I was just looking through those the day. Well, go and keep talking, Jeff. I'm sorry.
So it's
here,
not until really I started to read those where I was like, oh, yeah, I guess, you know, Lovecraft really was, you know, definitely racist. Howard, I think, shows a little bit of those attitudes from time to time. Of course, I can't speak for a man who who died a decade, almost 100 years ago, you know.
Right.
But I would argue that that Howard wrote a lot of stories that were empowering to women during his time.
Sure.
That he had some very strong female characters, and I think that he had some strong women in his life. His mother being one. Novelyn Price, I think, was a woman who inspired him. I think I heard before, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, Mike, that Valeria was inspired by Novelyn Price. Valeria of the Red Brotherhood.
I've heard that. I think in her book she gives herself credit for that, which is
okay.
So some of the stuff in her book, it's, you know, you have to take it with a grain of salt because it's all anecdotal.
Right.
But she said, I think she's the one who said that's part of it. But I mean, she could be correct. I don't know. I mean, that's. Yeah, I see. Because I was the same way as you. And you got to remember that, Jeff, we grew up at a time when there was no Wikipedia, there was no internet, there was no social media. So when I'm reading Lovecraft or I'm reading, you know, Conan the Barbarian, Marvel Comics, I don't have any idea what these guys' lives were like. I don't think I even knew that Howard was a Texan for a while. You know, they grew up just 2 hours away. I mean, I could have visited his childhood home at any time when I was a kid. But I didn't know it was only 2 or 3 hours away. So until the bigger world comes in and you start reading Wikipedia articles and then you start seeing people's posts, you're like, oh wait, yeah, man, I mean, and then I'm like you, Jeff, I think it was Howard Selected Letters. No, it was Lovecraft Selected Letters, Volume 4, Volume 3. I started getting into Arkham House, and I'm reading some of that stuff, going, "Oh man, yeah, this is not great. This is not a good look, man." But I realized he was, you know, he was a man of, you know, the teens and 20s, and it was interesting because, you know, he and Howard were good friends, and it's funny because even though they came from totally different backgrounds and places, they both had a lot of similarities in that they really didn't have a lot of friends. They kind of stayed in this little, you know, embryonic state because Howard really never left Texas his whole life. He stayed in the small town of Cross Plains, which is it's tiny. I mean, it's tiny now.
Yeah. It
was really tiny 100 years ago. So, and, you know, he didn't really have a lot of outside contact. Now, Lovecraft did travel a lot more than Howard. I know.
I think the furthest Howard went was New Orleans.
Yeah, he might have gone to New Orleans. You're correct. But
he went to some library at the university there.
But Lovecraft would hop on a bus and go all over the place with his cans of beans or whatever he used to carry with him, and he would travel. But even then, he kind of had this weird proto aristocracies. You know, I'm a Bostonian type attitude to everything, and I wonder if it was almost more cultural than it was racial. You know, that I'm above other people because you can see sometimes the letters. I mean, he never says Howard's a bumpkin or anything, but he does chastise Howard sometimes because his level of experience is not what Howard's was or Lovecraft's was, because Howard didn't travel, and Howard would promise to meet him all the time. You know, oh, you're going to there? Oh yeah, I'll meet you there, and he never would. It was always an excuse, and usually because his mother was sick, he couldn't travel, and that's what he was always his excuse that, you know, I can't travel anywhere. So you're talking about people who just had very stunted views of the world because of the time they grew up in, and just, you know, and unfortunately, that was their personality. I think, you know, if you read their stories, I don't think you see a lot of that overtly. I mean, it's obviously it's an undercurrent, especially in Lovecraft stories. It's definitely an undercurrent. But I don't think it's necessarily so in your face that you're just like, yeah, I can't read this even anymore. This is just so over the top. Yeah,
right. I mean, the stuff that makes you the most uncomfortable about reading Lovecraft is the futility of humanity, and its place in the cosmos. You know, he really makes you feel like a little ant that can be stepped on at any time. We're nothing.
Pretty much. That's why Call of Cthulhu is a great convention game and great for one shots, but not really great campaign game.
No, not really.
Although I've had some great Call of Cthulhu campaign games, it's just that you have to have a stable of adventurers, like 5,
Sure.
and you're going to lose about 3. Along the way, they're going to be horribly driven insane or killed.
Right.
So Midnight Green says, will the setting book be available separate from the rules book?
No.
No.
No, it is all built together.
Package deal. And by the way, we hit 150,000 here. Congratulations to everybody.
Oh,
here.
thank you. That's wonderful.
Yeah. That's all me. You owe me for that.
I owe it all to you.
No. So that's good. So you did hit 150, and you still have 3 more days, man. So that's great.
It should be an exciting finish.
Hopefully, we get some big numbers. Aaron Arnett says, I frame it in the context. Does the fictional works of HPL influence people to become racist? That's true, because we look at him now as definitely, I don't think a lot of people are making excuses for him in the terms of he wasn't a racist. I mean, they're making when they make quote unquote excuses for him, it's that, well, he was he grew up in the situation he grew up in pretty much turned him a racist rather than, no, he wasn't a racist at all. No. Yeah, I mean, he's pretty obvious when you read his letters. He's,
Yeah.
He out now says it, so you can't really defend him on any kind of.
No, you can't really. I suppose it's up to you as the reader, if his world viewpoints are upsetting to you and you can't separate the fiction from him as the person, then that's fine. There's a lot of fiction out there to read in the world and a lot of forms of entertainment.
I know the Call of Cthulhu RPG has had some issues with that over the years, and they've had to pretty much come out and say, look, we know what the game's based on, but look at the stories, not the person. And I think they've been very successful about separating themselves from the man. Hey, this is cosmic. We're talking about cosmic horror here. Don't focus on this guy. Focus on the fact this is cosmic horror. You're playing a cosmic horror game based on the works of him, but also based on other people. It wasn't just him. It was, Derleth and some of the other writers. A lot of writers wrote. I mean, Howard wrote some mythos stories. So it wasn't just based on one person. Actually, Howard wrote some great mythos stories. So. Oh
yeah, I mean, the horror in the Mound is one of my favorite stories. That's a great one.
Pigeons from Hell is a great story. I think it has a terrible name because I remember seeing that as a kid and deliberately skipping that story because I didn't really care about demonic pigeons.
But it really wasn't what it was about.
No, and later on when I read it, I was like, this is a kick-ass story. I just skipped it for so many years. So I'm like, I don't want to read about
horror.
pigeons.
When they go into that house and it's going to stay there, and he creates this atmosphere of horror that's just, really unbelievable.
Yep. Oh, yes. Which is really sad. That I always had the theory, I've seen this theory too, that Howard, everything he read, he became better and better. And once he got into a genre, when he did his westerns were great by the time he got finished with the westerns. His horror stories everything starts out slow. His Sword and Sorcery start out with the Cull stories. They're okay. Then they get a little better. And then he's doing the Conan. And they got really good at the end. Some of his later Conan stories are the best he ever wrote. So who knows what he would have had ahead of him? If he
my favorite Howard story is the Bran McMorn story, Worms of the Earth.
That's a great story too. Yeah, that is an absolute classic too. Yes, definitely. So he was getting better in every way. It's just unfortunate, that he killed himself. But there's been a lot of speculation over the years that he would have had a huge market as a Western writer. Yeah, because his Western stories, that was something he actually enjoyed. He knew the history because he was big history buff, and he lived in Texas. And I've read the book of his Westerns. I mean, they're okay. I'm not a big Western fan necessarily. But I don't know if you've ever read his Breckenridge Elkin stories.
Yeah.
They are incredible. They're hilarious.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun.
They're absolutely hilarious. So really, almost any genre he wrote in, he was just he conquered it.
How about Elborak?
Yep. Oh yeah, that's kind of the Indiana Jones kind of genre there.
Sure, Elborak stories. Like these tales of adventure,
But yeah,
he gets enmeshed with these tribal personalities in 1920s Afghanistan, and it's just great storytelling. So much action to them, and Howard's action scenes are just uncomparable.
Sure.
Just so great.
My favorite Howard story is Beyond the Black River. Well, my favorite Conan story.
Oh yeah, favorite Conan story. Yeah, that's right up there for me. Either that or maybe Red Nails.
I have always thought if they wanted to make a Conan movie that actually didn't flop, is you just slap down Beyond the Black River and say, I need you to make that into a movie. And I think you have made your Conan movie. And then I'm just,
that'd be great.
I've always been shocked that they can't manage to actually make
they can't. They have
Howard
to.
story.
It has to always be a new origin story, a newly conceived origin story in his childhood and everything. Just give it, it's not the way Howard wrote Conan. No one knows it. That in Hollywood, though, they think they know better. That maybe they do know it, but they think that this is what the public wants.
I think they think their audience is They think their audience is dumb too, and they don't know one iota about Conan the Barbarian. They just think, and I remember watching the Jason Momoa movie a few years ago, which I thought was a great sword and sorcery movie. It was not a Conan movie in any way, shape, or form, because it just shows they have an absolute misunderstanding of the character. They just think he's this big dumb barbarian that goes around killing stuff. His name's in the title. It says Conan the Barbarian. That's what he does, right? And so, nobody bothers to actually read the stories they're based on and realize he was extremely intelligent in the stories.
Right.
He can speak many languages. I mean, he's really smart. He speaks many languages. He has tactical. He can think of all kinds of ways to fight. He just rush in and kick in a door and beat something to death. He's very tactical in his stuff. So
he's a military genius.
Pretty much, yeah. And then that's always bothered me. They can't just take either Red Nails or Beyond the Black River and just
Sure.
Okay, this is it. This is your story. Write me a story based on this. And we were going to have a hit movie on our hands, and they would.
Or you can do, if you wanted to do a two-part movie, you could do Hour of the Dragon,
which would be great. Well, see, Hour of the Dragon would be your movie you make after the other two movies, after you make Red Nails and Beyond the Black River, or maybe or Tower of the Elephant or something, and then you build up to that, right? Because then your star's a little older, and he's a king now. So I know the rumors were always that Schwarzenegger wanted to do a King Conan movie.
Right.
And the rumors were that the script was based a little bit on Hour of the Dragon. Unfortunately, we're never going to get to see that because I think Schwartz, 80 years old. He's getting a little...
Probably close to 70.
I don't think he's going to do a Conan action movie. I know that he was very interested in the project for years and even decades after the Conan movies, and he even thought, I remember reading an article with the ones he thought, hey, I'm old now. I look like Conan would look older. I was like, yeah, he does.
Right.
But I think that boat sailed. So
yeah, that's too bad too. One of the things that I have always imagined that I would like to see if Conan, I see that you have another Rutger Hauer message up there right now. Hoping Conan can get a decent miniseries treatment one day, HBO or Amazon. So that kind of plays into one of my thoughts. And one of the things that I've often thought about is I would love to see Conan portrayed in such a way that Howard did it. And what I mean by that is instead of creating a Hollywood linear story that starts with his childhood and advances him through age and functions as some kind of epic, you do it the way Howard presented it. And what Howard did is he jumped all around. He told stories of when Conan was old, and then he would go, his next story would be when he was young, and then another story could be when he was middle age. He's all over the place because the way he envisioned it was, imagine you're sitting by a campfire and you're being told stories by someone. They're not going to tell stories in a linear fashion. They're going to say, oh yeah, and then there was this other time, and you go back and it may be further back in history, or you may be bumping ahead. So even though it's non-linear, it's non-chronological, it makes more sense. And for the real fans of Howard's Conan, that's the kind of thing that we would like to see. Just a various spread of Conan tales, true Howardian fashion.
Most people don't know the first Conan story was Phoenix on the Sword.
Right.
Which was when he's a king. He's been a king for years.
He's a king, yes.
Yeah, so that's the first story Howard ever wrote before he went back and started writing stories about young Conan.
Sure, and then you jump all the way back to Tower of the Elephant, and he's a kind of dumb on that one, right? That's when he is kind of oafish, because and Howard portrays him that way because he's young and he hasn't gained wisdom through experience.
Right.
But you know what? Hollywood just can't pull any of that stuff off. Solomon Kane, I was looking forward to that movie so much, and I'm like, except for the name, the title.
He's a great character, and you know, once again, who was the star? I can't remember. I liked the star. I can't remember his name. That was
I can't remember it either. But
that was what's his name? Did a great job as a generic Puritan action hero. It was not Solomon Kane. He was not Solomon Kane at all. You know, so calling it Solomon Kane was just a rip off for Howard fans because he wasn't Solomon Kane, but it was a solid movie if you didn't have the Howard connection.
Right. It was like it's just people will get name recognition because we're going to use Howard. And like, no, come on, man. Either make up your own shit or go to the source material, and that really is the frustrating part, I guess. And frustrating getting spoiled. You know, like, listen, the suggestion like, oh, we could get a HBO series. Listen, I'd love to see you get the treatment that The Witcher got, and actually be fairly true to the source material. It would be great. Or the first few seasons of Game of Thrones before they had to go off script because there wasn't a script.
Oh, James Purefoy. James Purefoy was Solomon Kane, which I I liked him in the movie, but he wasn't Solomon Kane. With a good script, you'd have been great. I mean, if they adapted something, one of the better Solomon Kane stories. But that was.
I don't know what they adapted.
It was just all over the place. It was crazy. It was now the best Solomon Kane story, which actually is my favorite Howard story of all time, is Wings of the Night. It's actually absolutely, bar none, hands down, my favorite Howard story ever. It's just
that has mythos elements to it.
Oh, it's an incredible story. I mean, the whole that's what they need to make a movie of, because just the whole picture of a Puritan walking around in Africa in the 18. I mean, just the whole setting is amazing. For that story is amazing
because these bat-winged men.
Oh yeah, there's and he has to fight bat-winged mythos type creatures that are just horrific, just horrifically frightening, and just the way he goes about destroying him at the end, because it's just it's just an amazing story. So,
I like too what he had like on what was the shaman's name, Nalonga, something. He had his staff, his magic juju staff.
Yep.
Yeah. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, and the funny thing is Howard wrote that story, and those accusing him of racism. And Solomon Kane's wandering around Africa and has no problem with anybody there. He doesn't say he doesn't say one racial comment at all. I don't think everybody to him, because he's a religious guy. Everybody's his brother, right? I mean, he's just he's just existing, and he actually tries to help him out, which goes horribly wrong, unfortunately. But that's a great story. That's what, once again, make it a Solomon Kane film. Don't mess around. Just throw down Wings of the Night and say, just make this into a movie. We're set.
Yeah.
But no. Don't just make that into a movie. But no. Just make it into a movie. Seriously, just do what I tell you to do. Don't go off script. Damn you.
Right.
Gosh, damn it.
Were you looking for Stephen's chronology of Robert E. Howard's artwork over the years? Not his artwork, but artwork.
Actually, I was, and I just couldn't find the link. So stop reading.
It looks really interesting. Yeah, I could tell what you were looking for. I could tell.
Yes,
based on our conversation.
Yes,
but that looks great. Stephen is doing they did a wonderful job with the Edgar Rice Burroughs 2-volume set there, or 3-volume. I forget how many volumes were in it. But now they're doing they're pulling out all these pieces of art that were like in Weird Tales and stuff like that a lot of people haven't really seen before. There it is.
Finally found it, because it was under the Chenault Way, as opposed to 12 War Games.
I see.
God, driving me crazy.
I forgot. Yeah, I forgot that Kickstarter's coming out here.
I think it launched a couple days ago.
Yeah, it's already raised almost $56K.
We'll plug that because we like Chenault and we love Troll War Games. So
sure.
Yeah, and the art. The art is what we remember, right? Like this, we don't remember the stories, but your visualness. Like for me, it was King Conan.
Of course.
That was the comic book series that I got hooked on, And when I did, I was just like, oh man, this is awesome. Even when I stopped collecting comics, I had to pick up King Conan
Yeah.
because it was just a really solid storyline. And that was like what Roy Thomas, right? He's like
Yes.
he was the one that could really capture Howard and translate it and stay true. Even if he went off on his own rails, he stayed
Right.
true to Howard.
Yeah, he was great.
He loved Howard. He still loves Howard to this day. I've seen an interview with him just for years. Matter of fact, he was a guest I believe this year at Howard Days.
Yeah.
He's just always loved Howard. Always loved Conan. And the first thing I ever read with Conan, I was reading the Barry Smith Conan comics. And what's interesting about Smith is, at the time, all the Conan pictures were all the Frazetta stuff, where he's just this big, muscled guy. And I remember reading an interview with Barry Smith, and so they went chronologically in the comic book series. They start out when Conan's really young, and he said, well, Conan wasn't this muscle-bound guy back then. He was this like a wolf, a panther. He was lithe and thin, and he drew him. And I remember a lot of fans were really pissed off because he didn't look like Frazetta's Conan.
Right.
But he wasn't drawing Frazetta's Conan. He was drawing young Conan when he's just starting out. And some of the best artwork you'll ever see is the last 6 or 7. Conan the Barbarians that Barry Smith did, because I think he stopped drawing about issue 24, 25, and then
somewhere around there. I mean, I
then,
loved his stuff, but I was partial to John Buscema.
Yeah, then John Buscema took over right after that. But some of the best stuff he ever drew was, I think, if you ever find reprints, issues I think 18 through about 25, when he did Song of Red Sonja and some other stuff. I mean, he hit his stride. And the problem with
you had Conan and Elric in a 2-parter.
Oh my God, that was great! Yeah, I remember reading that as a kid. That blew my mind as a kid too.
Now he drew Elric the way Elric had been drawn in the original Stormbringer novel.
And by the way,
he had those big boots and the red.
And he got a lot of criticism for that too, because everybody was used to the Michael Whelan covers.
Yeah,
at that point.
The Michael Whelan covers were just the absolute gold. And I loved what Robert Gould did too on his covers of the Elric books.
Oh yeah. Those are very good.
Because what I really liked about Robert Gould is he really made Elric look frail, like a frail albino. And because we know that that's kind of what he was, but the sword made him powerful.
Have you ever seen any of Craig Russell's Elrics?
Oh yeah.
He did. So I got to meet Craig Russell in I worked at a comic book shop in the early 80s, and I actually got to meet him. Really nice guy. But I love the way, because he did, not Fortress at the End of Time. He did a graphic novel in the early 80s by Marvel, and it was the one where he comes back to Melnibone and destroys it.
The Dreaming City?
Dreaming City. He did a graphic novel of that, and he does a great job making Elric look very frail. He's just very, very frail, but that's what he was in the stories. I mean, like you said, the sword is what made him strong, Stormbringer, which is why he couldn't get rid of the sword because he didn't want to go back to being frail. And
he was dependent on drugs and herbs to survive prior to that.
He was definitely an anti-hero. Moorcock is not an admirable hero, but yeah, he was. But yeah, the Craig Russell stuff, and he did. I think he did a few more series after that. But I always remember the Dreaming series. He did a great job making Elric look very much like I always pictured Elric.
Mm-hmm. Like a sorcerer too, and a warrior and a sorcerer. Yep. Which is kind of like the model for if I can plug what I'm doing here. It's the warlock subclass that I have in my game is basically a fighter subclass that casts spells as well, and so the rub on them is that their experience points are more expensive, gaining levels. So I didn't want to do multi-classing in my game. I wanted to just have a class that can be these two things at the same time. So I think of it more as a hybrid class.
Okay.
And so I very much had like Elric and you could say Cain too from Carl Edward Wagner. He's a warrior and a sorcerer at the same time. He's all these things.
He's also very evil, but that's one of me. That's one of our favorite series of all time. You and me. I love the Cain books. If you've never read Carl Edward Wagner, sadly his career was cut short by alcoholism, but he wrote some amazing. They're just some of the best swords of sorcery anti-hero stories ever written.
Yeah.
He's a bad dude, but the things he fights are worse, and so
Right.
he becomes the hero by default because
it's really unbelievable when you read the Kane stories that he does such horrible things in the stories that you would think that you should hate him, and yet somehow Wagner makes him a sympathetic character.
Want him to win. You want him to win.
To win, yeah.
Because every Kane novel, there was 3 novels: Bloodstone, Night. Oh, I can't remember the names of all of them. But every one of them, he has a horrible goal that he wants to complete, and you want him to win. But at the same time, you're like going, yeah, but he's a bad dude. This is one bad dude. And of course, he always has a fatal flaw that ruins his ascent to ruling the world or whatever. But he's. For those who have never read the Wagner Kane stories, there's been several editions that come out, collected editions over the years.
Yeah,
but he's a good model for a warrior swordsman. He's a great model. Or sorry, a sorcerer swordsman. He's a great model.
All in the same package. Yes.
Yep.
So I dig that kind of stuff. I don't think that it has to necessarily be black and white. Like this guy is a magician and this guy is a sorcerer.
Right. That's the way fiction's supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
You don't write fiction pegging classes.
Right.
It kind of evolves into what it's going to be to fit the story. And that's kind of, I mean, how many classes are there in Hyperborea?
26.
If you can find what you want out of 26 classes,
right. But
true.
Part of the reason that there's 26, so because you can. In some modern games, you can get away with a lot less and essentially have those 26 classes because they're character builds and you're building your character and buying these abilities. In Hyperborea, is sort of like the roots of the hobby in which we embrace character archetypes. So there may be some variability in there, such as let's say, for example, if you roll up a shaman. When you roll up a shaman, shamans have 2 schools of spells they cast, cleric and magician. But if you can switch out cleric for druid and you can switch out magician for necromancer, that's a decision you need to make when you're rolling up your character. You can't just go back and forth after that. So you might have a shaman who casts cleric and necromancer spells. And so there is a little bit of flexibility in a few things like that. You could look at, when you're a fighter, you're going to choose what your weapon mastery is in, and so that was what kind of defines you differently from, the next fighter. So there's little choices that you make that can make your character unique. But for the most part, it's embracing the idea of character archetype.
That's cool. And that really is building off the fiction that we were talking about. Right? I mean, that's it. There are all these character archetypes. You read a story, Conan is the barbarian, but he does take on some other roles.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I never actually understood in like Unearthed Arcana, the whole idea of barbarians not being able to handle anything magical. I mean, Conan certainly did a number of times.
That was all game balance. That was all. Because remember, in Unearthed Arcana, they were getting, if you rolled a barbarian using the Unearthed Arcana rules for those 9 dice for strength and 8 dice for con and 7 dice for dex.
Right.
You could have somebody who had +8 for hit points with a 12-sided die, and could have +8, -8 for dex. I mean, you had a balance.
That was some serious power creep compared to the original hardbacks.
Which is why a lot of old grognards do not like Unearthed Arcana, because of the big change it made in the game. It made some big changes. The character classes were not very balanced, let's put it that way.
No.
I remember one of my first house rules when I was a teenager was I was opposed to the idea of a cavalier gaining attributes points as they went up in levels, that they were just going to, I thought it was completely unfair to all the other character classes in the game that they had to achieve these through either magical means or by aging, right? You age and you want to reach certain...
Hey, I rolled 18. I have a 17, but I rolled a 98 for my percentile in Constitution. Next level, I'm gonna probably go up. What I did is I gave every class their prime plus one other, and allowed them to roll. Because if you're giving it to Cavaliers, you got to get something for everybody else. I hated Cavalier Paladins. I thought it ruined the Paladin class.
Because Cavalier, they made a subclass of the Paladin.
Oh, or the Paladin was
Oh, no,
the
the Paladin is a
Cavalier.
subclass of the Cavalier. That's right, that's right.
Yeah, no, that was painful.
Right. There were some things that I liked, though, because like they gave the thief was then able to use a short bow, stuff like that. I think those were some improvements.
And illusionists got spells that means that they were actually viable before they hit like level 7, as opposed to as a waste of space in the party. But yeah, there were a few things.
Yeah.
So we're talking to Jeff Talanian, Hyperborea. It's up to 150K. 3 more days to go. Any last words you want to say about the game before we move on to just talking some general? Although we've been just talking general, I guess, for the last hour or so, because it's Jeff. We could just go off in any direction.
Yeah, right. We're going to go off into was it This Week in Gaming?
Yeah, This Week in Stupid.
This Week in Gaming, yeah.
Great title by Eric there. Classic. We need to have T-shirts made with that.
This week in Gaming Stupid.
This Week in Gaming Stupid. So, but yeah, definitely check Jeff's Kickstarter out. I just backed it. Eric backed it. We're all in. So
I'm all in is right.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. Much appreciated. Checks on the mail.
Books
in the mail. No, but I do appreciate coming on. You know, it's great to connect with you guys. You know, it's awesome, so awesome to see you at cons. You know, this is why we do it, right? You know, it's the fun and camaraderie of gaming. And are you gentlemen going to Gamehole Con?
I'm going.
I am.
And Eric is going. Although we're not going together. We're not going together. We're not holding hands or anything. But we'll both be at the same place.
Yes, and I would suspect that we'll probably do Wednesday Night Live from the.
Ooh, tasty! Yes,
we got to do a live show.
Tasty! Yes, we will definitely.
Wednesday night is when the industry guests are all going across town to Alex's restaurant.
Well, we're not industry guests.
Yeah, they don't care about us anymore. We went 1 year and then they dumped us after that. They don't care about us anymore.
Yeah, so we don't get that kind of.
No, we don't get that perk anymore.
We're going to do this show live from Gamehole. We'll do probably like we did at North Texas. We'll probably do more than one show live.
Okay.
We may do it from the Frog God booth there. I don't know. We'll find some little spot to squirrel away at.
The hotel that's attached has that nice room with loud people and drinking and food. So I'm sure it'll be a great con experience.
By the way, I'm doing the auction this year at Gamehole with Rick Mintz. I can't remember how you pronounce his last name, from Chaosium.
Oh, nice.
So, I'll actually get to the auction after I crapped out in the auction in North Texas because of food poisoning. I'm actually going to get to do an auction this year. Yay. But,
nice.
we're going to do that Saturday. That'll be Saturday night. That'll be fun. And,
So let me get this straight. You are going to the convention of the person that got you food poisoning, and now you owe them the favor of doing the auction?
This seems a little rough, I know. It seems a little like it doesn't make any sense. But there's no evidence that Alex actually poisoned me. It's extremely coincidental that I got sick the night after he and I hung out a night. I admit that's extremely coincidental. And I was advised by Mark Greenberg that yes, that he probably did attempt to kill me. And so I don't know. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Alex is a pretty good dude. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and hopefully he did not try to kill me, and there will not be another attempt made in my life during Gamehole Con.
We'll know. If Mike gets sick of Gamehole Con.
Oh, dear. Dear. And I probably will, because I haven't traveled for a year and a half, so God knows it's going to happen.
Alex is on cloud 9 right now because his much beloved Milwaukee Bucks just won the NBA championship, and they hadn't won in like 50 years.
Oh, it was 50,
season ticket holder. So he was like so stoked about that.
Yeah, that'll last him a while. Then he'll be back to then it'll it'll wear off after a while. But yes,
The luster will wear.
He was extremely excited about that. I'm glad for him. I'm glad for anybody that loves a team that's not very popular. I mean, all you New Yorker guys, you guys are winning something every other year, and all you East Coast guys, and us, us fans of teams like the Mavericks or the Rangers or the Bucks or whatever, we just have to hope for a once every 3 decades championship. So I'm always happy when somebody that likes a small market team actually gets a win there. Unless you're a Packer fan, I hate the Packers. So.
Oh, I'm a Jets fan. Okay, so I mean, I am used to.
Oh well, you're pretty. Oh, you know what? You're just as bad, Eric. In that case, yes. Eric, I welcome you to the fraternity because the Jets are trash. So yes,
God, they are. They really, really fucking are. Holy shit.
They could be good in a few years. You never know.
It's like, hey, they drafted a great. Oh, look, the quarterback should be great. Yeah, Rach likes him because he does yoga. You know what? If the guy fucking does yoga, then I know the Jets. Look, they got rid of him already. Well, look at that. Rach, you no longer have a reason to watch the Jets because they no longer have a yoga
guy that does. Yeah, that's always a key point when you're looking for a quarterback. Does he do yoga? What kind of yoga? Hot yoga? I don't know. All right, so
not as easy as you think.
We're gonna do a quick this week in gaming stupid. Eric, do you have any gaming stupids for us this week? I'm sure there's some. What's shocking? I'm surprised.
This wasn't stupid.
This wasn't stupid.
I am a backer of that.
Oh, me too. Us too. Everybody here's
out $80.
Oh,
I think I'm out. I'm out.
Hold on, you're gonna get content eventually.
Wait. I'm out 150. All right, so
I'm only at 100. I'm at 100. I don't know what I backed for the extra 100, but oh well.
Yeah, So, here's the deal. Benoit hit the first week. He actually completed the appendices. Appendix A, Monsters and Characters. B, Special Rules. C, Handouts, 16 handouts. D, GM cheat sheets. E, the Ancient Temple template map with 2 versions of the same map, 1 black and white, 1 color, and now he's going on to week 2, and I do not know what is coming up for week 2.
All right, so riddle me this. I don't pay attention to all the details of it, but I'm pretty sure that my pledge that I pledged for it, which was only like $80, but I believe it was for a 3-book set.
Well, I don't know.
It was there was like a dungeon, there was like a wilderness.
You're gonna get what you get, and you're gonna like it, Jeff.
Okay, so here, just so we have an idea of, and thankfully, people have learned over the years that stretch goals are not your friends.
Never do this, folks. Never do this.
So, promised stretch goals, map of the crypt under the burial vault, cover art by Jeff Easley, sci-fi customization pack. Why would you want a science fiction pack for a fantasy dungeon? I don't know.
So before Garrett goes to this, you'll look on this, and this list is the list of somebody making these up as they went along. This had no plan to it. You can tell by how haphazard they are, and they're all over the place. And for some reason, they felt like they had to do one every $3,000, which is insane.
Actually, it's every $2,500.
Oh my
5th edition and Pathfinder conversion add-ons. They're add-ons. Hope you didn't pay for it because I don't believe we got it.
No.
Map of the tunnels, wherever. Fold-up map pack. You're not going to get that.
No.
Castles and Crusades conversion and Gaxmore insertion. First off, these conversions are... I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. Are you converting the whole product? Are you just doing a couple of pages converting... What? The stat blocks? Again, I don't know. I don't know if they knew. Modern Horror Fantasy Customization Pack. Mike, tell me what that is.
Why? I'm just not what it is. Why it is? What?
But all right. So now here's the stretch goal that you're actually getting: full bestiary appendices. We've got that. GM screen freebie, outdoor wilderness map, weird swords and sorcery customization pack. Was that you, Jeff? Were
yeah. So Benoit reached out to me at one point during their campaign and asked if he can make some type of like Hyperborea related adaptation, sort of like, there's no elves and hobbits in Hyperborea, so I advice on like, if there's an elven village, like what you can put there instead if you're running it in Hyperborea, that kind of thing. I don't know, something like that.
You know what, dude?
I wish I hadn't said yes, because I hate being, I have gotten a few messages over the last 3 years now asking like, what my role in it is. No, I don't.
And you have no role in it. Yeah, you have no role in this.
And I never intended to actually do any work for this Kickstarter.
There you go. The box add-on, Memorial Tomb Tom Wham handout cartoon. I'm Hackmaster conversion. What was it even Hackmaster 4E at that point, or I don't even know. Death at Crom.
Well, Pathfinder's on Pathfinder 2 now. Right.
Well, true. Death at Cromlock's new scenario, Prismatic Maze expanded frame and tomb hex. I think that's going to be.
That's one of the things Benoit's supposedly working on right now.
Yes. DCC RPG
his maps are
conversion.
Beautiful.
Yes, they are. They're amazing. DCC player handouts. We're getting that. River system around level 1 of the tomb. No idea what the fuck that meant, but okay. GM screen and print, Wilderness Encounters, Samizawa and the Dueling Dragons tie-in.
Nobody asked for that. No,
I don't think anybody could tell.
I don't know what it means. Can you get? Is there a translation?
He wrote a children's book called Samizawa and the Dueling Dragons. It was a kid's book. Doug got a few copies.
Oh, this was Ernie. Something Ernie did.
Yeah,
right?
Ernie did. Yeah. So there doesn't need to be a tie-in to that. That's just silly. These were all. Most of these were just.
Like you said, it sounds like they're making them up as they go along.
Yeah, they were just making up stuff to throw in there as they were.
GM cheat sheets. We are getting the GM cheat sheets. Hexes of the Midlands. Miniature scale dungeon tiles. Why? The Twin Tankers. Hirelings extravaganza. All right. Here's one. I don't know if anybody asked for this one, and I don't know why it's in red. Young Ernie's life story. Here is an interesting thing to think about.
Oh my god!
From what we can gather from what Troll Lord has prior posted and said elsewhere, is that pretty much Ernie has washed his hands of this and moved on. Is Ernie have his life story? Maybe I don't know.
The stretch goals, when you read those off, to me, it sounds like from the updates that I've read, and I haven't read them all because I don't know, there's probably 150 updates at this point.
Oh dear. Yeah.
But the updates that I have read, it seems to me like they're going to try to salvage as much of the project as they can. Steven's given it his best effort and putting his team on it. He said that he printed the boxes and printed the books.
Yeah, they had the books, the maps, and the boxes there. And so the update here says Benoit turned in Appendix A, Monsters and Characters, Appendix B, Special Rules, Appendix C, Handouts with 16 handouts, Appendix D, GM cheat sheets, and Appendix C, the Ancient Temple template map with 2 versions of the map, one black, white, the other color. So he did turn in 5 items that I guess will now go in the box set.
That's cool.
I don't know what the other. I know he has another 4 weeks of stretch goals to hit. Well, that's nice that those will go in there. But yeah, this is slowly. I mean, the good thing is we're going to see something, which is great. Thanks for trolls for that.
I want them to do it. I don't want them to fail.
We talk about that all the time. Yeah, we don't. We're not hoping there's for failure.
Sure.
I mean, and I've said this before, and I'm going to say this again. This is the rarity. This is one of the few times where a Kickstarter didn't fail after funding because the money was spent on hookers and blow or on starting your own company and hiring staff without
or whatever in hell that they.
Can I tell you my favorite from a failed Kickstarter that I pledged to many years ago?
Yes.
So I pledged to one called Custom Dice, and it was custom laser engraved dice. I forget what it was. What the thing. So this guy, I think, raised about $86,000, and what it was he was making 6-siders that you could have your company logo
Oh.
laser engraved on. Seemed kind of cool. So I went in at like $100 or $120 or something like that to get a big block of 6-siders, and I figured I would give them out at conventions and stuff like that, you know. So this guy, within like 3 or 4 months, bailed on the whole thing. He enlisted and put an update on it that said, due to his undiagnosed health problems and breathing issues, he had to buy a house in a warmer climate.
Uh-huh.
And no one was getting their money back with, you know. And so
but he's going to be okay. But you should feel good. He's okay now. He's living on the beach. He's living on the beach, and you should feel happy. His breathing problems are solved. He walks out to the beach every day with his $86,000. Oh my God.
That was unbelievable.
That's
really
hilarious.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, it's awesome in a horrible way. Listen, Ernie and Benoit is something that nobody else that I've seen has had a Kickstarter succeed and yet fail to produce. The money was still there years later.
Yeah.
The money was
there's
put
hope.
into a commercial account. So when it came to the trolls coming in and literally becoming the savior, they could do it without, say, investing $50,000 to print this, because the money you had to invest in man hours. It's not free for the trolls.
And that's why, unfortunately, that's why you're never going to see City State of the Invincible Overlord.
No.
Because unlike this project, City State of the Invincible Overlord, all the money's gone. So whoever wants to take over that project is going to have to start from scratch, and nobody is willing to take that risk on, especially after all the issues with the Bloodsaws last year. But nobody's willing to take that on because nobody wants to start from scratch on a project like that. And from what I've heard, you'd literally have to start from scratch. And luckily, like you said, Eric, they still have the money here, so the Troll Lords are able to come in and be the White Knights and do this, which is I'm glad, I'm grateful to him, because I don't think we were gonna. I doubt we were ever going to see it. I really do. I just don't think we were going to ever see it without the Troll Lord guys coming in. So that's good. So yeah, Ernie hit his first goal, so that's good. So we're happy at that, and hopefully continue to hit him every Monday. Yeah, hopefully he can, because I think he's been given the word by Chenault that the first one not hit that's it. We're finished, and we're going to move on to mailing these out finally and move on from there. So that's good. That's
good news.
So do we have any more Wonderfield or TSR? Can we bash on those guys? Because I know people love when we bash on them, because they always tell us how much they love us after we bash on them. Oh wait, no, they don't. They tell us that
they're like, "Oh, you're so evil! You're so evil! Why you pick on?
How dare we? How dare we pick on these poor people?
You must be the Russian bots if you're picking on TSR, or you're Hasbro apologist." And listen, here's the thing. Right now, apparently, TSR Con is a new Facebook group.
We'll check it out.
Yeah, I let's see, TSR.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, there it is. All right, let me check it out here.
And even the Dungeon Hobby Shop, links to something about TSR Con 2020. Prepare your game submissions. When is this con? We don't know. We know it's supposed to be
2020. It says 2022 at the Horticultural Hall. No date.
Right.
Date is TBT. To be determined? I don't know.
To be terminated? To be TSR'd. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how much weight they put on it. Now, I will say this. If you want to go to a convention in 2022 in Wisconsin and actually be able to go to something that isn't Game Hole, right? And then isn't going to be Gary Con. There will be an announcement coming out this week, and I don't want to spoil the announcement, but there'll be an announcement this weekend for a convention in Wisconsin in the summer of 2022. Venue has been acquired. Dates have actually been acquired. The convention's a small one, about 100. No larger than this TSR non-con. And of all people, it's going to be Wenger Santanis that is going to be organized. Listen,
I'm gonna get the popcorn. Let me pop the popcorn for VengerCon. This is gonna be awesome.
Listen, it's good.
Oh,
I have no doubt that VengerCon is going to happen, and I have no doubt that he can get. It's going to be a couple of days. I have no doubt that he's going to get at least 100 attendees. I have a lot of doubt as to whether TSRCon can ever happen, because we don't have it. If Wenger, and again, I know he has dates because he told me what the dates are, but I'm not going to announce something that he hasn't announced yet. But if he can secure this, right? If he can do this, and TSR, the game company, the game wizard, they founded the industry according to them, because they didn't, but we got the name. If they can't figure this shit out months after saying we're going to do this, then I don't really have too much faith in them. But Wenger, I believe.
So yeah, that's where we live in now. Wenger's going to put on a con before the second coming of TSR, or the third coming of TSR is going to put on a con.
Yeah. Isn't it Venger, like the character from the D&D cartoon?
Yeah,
do we call him Venger? Yeah, we call him.
I think it's Venger.
Yeah, I think.
I always call him Wenger. And
I think it's Venger. I think I think it's the name from the villain in the D&D cartoon.
Oh no, I'm sure it is Venger, but I never. But listen.
I like Wenger though. That's even better.
Here, remember, I'm the one that says, is it a magazine or a magazine? I've got my zine. No, it's a zine.
Well, hopefully, Wenger will try to finance this versus Kickstarter. That'd be awesome. He needs to do a Kickstarter for this, for VengerCon or whatever he's going to call it.
You know what? I got to say a lot. Listen, I've butted heads with. We're being corrected by inappropriate characters to tell us exactly how to pronounce the Wenger. Wenger. You say potatoes.
Yeah.
It's all the same. But you know what? The Kickstarters that he has put out has amazing art, and I mean, I'm not into the sci-fi that he's into on his level, but his fantasy stuff is very usable and very playable, and some of the best stuff that's out there. Don't have to say we get along like it's like what, vinegar and oil. I guess if you shake us up enough, we kind of get together a bit. But but yes, he'll have a con out, and the actual cons won't.
You know what's scary about VengerCon in July of 2022? Here's what's scary. I've already told my wife that we're going to go to visit Wisconsin one summer because I wanted to see how beautiful Wisconsin is. She never has. Yeah. And I've always been either the fall or the spring. It's usually the weather's terrible. I mean, a couple of times weather's been really nice. Yeah. And I would love to see it in the summer when the weather's beautiful.
Yeah, we went one year in June.
Oh, I bet it was wonderful. Yeah,
it was beautiful. Yeah, it was funny because I was involved with gaming stuff all day, so my wife actually came with me, and she wanted to get out because it was so nice out, and she ended up going on a cruise on the lake, and they did talking about the history of like all the mobsters from Chicago and stuff like that.
They used to all come up there. That was
around the lake. Yeah, she said it was great.
So if we decide to go there this summer, I guess I hate to say this, I'm going to have to make sure the trip happens in July so we can hit the Satanis Con, because I can't pass up that opportunity if I happen to be in Wisconsin this summer.
According to the Dungeon Hobby Shop, they're looking at July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, looking to lock in. So you might have you can make. I have double.
Maybe I can have two cons. Maybe one con will happen right after the other, or they'll happen the same week, and I can just hit both cons, and then I could compare them both. That'd be awesome.
You know what? I'd put my money on Wenger because I suspect not. First off, I know he's a professional. Even when he's not a professional, he could still be a professional. It's there. The ability is there. You can rebuild him. TSR is a fucking train wreck.
They haven't done anything yet. They still haven't done anything.
I know.
And the one thing they were going to do, which was Giant Lands, wasn't ever really them. That was Wonderfield. and that still hasn't even come out anyway.
You have an update on that, don't you?
Oh, I did have a Wonderfield update.
Yes, give us the update.
Oh shoot, I forgot. I wasn't.
Wait a minute. Can you pause a second for the completely ignorant? What is a Wonderfield and what is I don't even know. You're using words. I don't even know what you're talking about anymore.
All right.
Poor Jeff. Poor Jeff doesn't have to suffer through this.
Do you want to do the quick update or shall I?
Give me the Cliff Notes version.
You get the clip. Wonderfield is no. It's. All right. So you do this. You do this.
All right. So here's the thing. So TSR, when they became TSR 3rd edition, post top secret TSR or whatever you want to call it.
Yes. I get that part.
They had no products except for like rebranded like dollar store dice and I guess patches of whatever stuff that they're selling to the museum. So they partnered up with Wonderfield, and Wonderfield had a Kickstarter that was by a guy named Stephen Dinehart and James Ward. And Dinehart pretty much filled up the setting and all that stuff, and James came in and did the first, as he said, first fantasy post-apocalypse RPG ever. I guess we don't count Gamma World. Didn't James write Gamma World? I guess James just counts his own work as being part of the heritage. But in any case,
is he writing his own ad copy though?
Probably.
Probably not. No.
Well, yeah, it's probably. I think most of the ad copy was Dinehart. So in any case, oh dear. So somehow Dinehart bought into TSR, and then he was a TSR partner. And then their social media went insane, and then Dinehart and Giant Lands was going to be published by TSR, but then Ernie in his interview said it wasn't good enough, and had to be rewritten or revised before it would be good enough to be published by TSR. But the Kickstarter is long overdue. It was overdue before COVID, so COVID is just the excuse to make it more overdue.
Yeah. Oh. But they're still taking pre-orders on it, so Wonderfield this week had a post that said, due to cyber attacks on our various web-based accounts, we've been having problems with our payment processor Square. We have since disabled them, will not be using them in the future. As a result, any pre-orders for Giant Lands processed with them previously will be honored. This sets off what I like to call a red flag in my mind, because I don't know how they would have a cyber attack on their various web-based accounts. That sounds very techy, but it doesn't make any sense when you break it down.
No.
If they have a payment processor, Square's their payment processor, Square's like PayPal or something like that, they're not. How would they be attacking Wonderfield's web-based accounts? It sounds. And this is pure speculation. I'm gonna say right now it's pure speculation. It sounds to me it sounds like they're going to be late. They're going to be late because Giants Lands they said the date it was supposed to come out was going to be this August. It sounds to me now it could still come out because I could be wrong. I'm just speculating, but it sounds to me this might be used as an excuse why Giant Lands doesn't come out in August. Now, hopefully, we'll see Giant Lands in August and it'll all be, taken care of. But it just sounds very odd to say this. So I know they get a lot. They had a lot of chargebacks. I know that because that was mentioned on.
So that could be what they're talking about.
Well, they had a lot because apparently when they and TSR were teamed up, a lot of people who wanted to support the new TSR were ordering Giant Lands sight unseen, or they didn't know anything about it. Eric and I saw a post. Yeah, plus they just wanted to support the new TSR because they were less woke and they were, I don't know. And plus they were the original TSR and they started Gen Con, all the things they were saying that were just nonsense. And they wanted to support them against against all the woke masses. Well, then once TSR and Dinehart / Wonderfield broke up, they got a little testy and upset because they wanted to support TSR. Well, TSR never owned Giant Lands.
Right.
And so once they broke up, Giant Lands, all those orders stayed with Wonderfield. Well, apparently there was a lot of chargebacks from people who thought they were helping out TSR, the new TSR. And once they broke up, they didn't want their money going to Giant Lands. And as a matter of fact, I think Dinehart got a lot of hate mail, and he got a lot of people canceling their orders. So So he does mention that in one of the replies he makes to somebody. They asked what the problem was. He said, well, the problem is people charging back. So he does mention that charging back is part of the issues they're having. So that makes me wonder. I don't know. Maybe Square blocked their account or something because there's so many chargebacks.
It could be. You know what? Because Square might have shut it down. Said you got this many chargebacks. It's like what scam were you doing that we're seeing?
Sure.
Whatever percentage of chargebacks. And there's another thing that you got to take into account. You're going to make your and Jeff could support me in this. You're going to make your print run based upon the sales that you have in hand and using that to estimate the sales that you might have later. And if your sales that you have in hand are cut by 10, 20, 30%, now you don't even know. And if they can still get cut.
Well, and I'll tell you something else. So they were people were canceling orders. They took down their Square account. There's been complaints on the Wonderfield page that people can't get their pre-orders back. That now they can't cancel it because their Square account's being taken down. There's nowhere to go to get their money back or their pre-orders. Jeez. So I see a couple of complaints on Wonderfield's page that, hey, because you don't have a Square account anymore, I can't get a refund. And there's been no reply for these.
See, I hate hearing any of this type of stuff because I feel like feel like it's a bad look for all of us.
I think it is. I agree with you, Jeff.
And I don't think it helps.
It's a mess.
You get a lot of people out there who are casual fans, casual buyers, and they get a bad taste in their mouth, and then they're just done, and they're not going to support anybody's stuff. And there's people out there who are, busting their back to produce great stuff, and they're working as hard as they can to be responsible producers and fulfillers of the things that they're taking money from people. And it's really a shame.
And this happens when you have a lot of hype and not much. I don't know if it's necessarily a business sense because apparently Deinhardt's a successful businessman in his endeavors. It's just that when you get into a field you're not that familiar with, it's very easy to make missteps. And I think there was a lot of missteps made by both Lanasa and Deinhardt in trying to break into this field. And it's come back to bite him in the ass, pretty much.
They were working off nostalgia that was like stolen nostalgia. So I've heard somebody refer to it as like almost like stolen valor, except that it's gaming related, and people are stealing the nostalgia that is associated with the original TSR. The TSR second edition version never really tried to market itself as TSR Reborn. But these folks have, and therein lies a lot of the issue here. I think that some people just don't know any better that this is not. And like you said, Giant Land was being built as TSR's game, and it's going to be old school, but it's percentile based, and you wear poncho-like costumes.
I'm sure Jeff likes to wear a mask and a poncho.
Yeah, do you wear a mask and a poncho when you game at a table?
Oh, that's private information.
I
only wear the poncho so I can touch myself and people.
That was during his metal days back in the old days. He used to. Wow. He dressed up like Guar, probably. He was dressed like Guar, and he used to run games. I'm going to find those pictures. I know they're there soon.
Yeah, they're out there. There goes my political career.
Yeah.
Down the toilet.
Oh man!
For Halloween, he'd be one of the members of KISS. Like, hey, got my mask on.
Okay, so there we go, Eric. We know that you're a poser because you called KISS a metal band. KISS ain't no metal band.
Rock and roll.
Yeah, they were kind of listen. My metal was Iron Maiden, and Iron Maiden was kind of
nothing wrong with Iron Maiden. No,
new album coming out.
They'll get you there. They'll get you there.
My God.
Oh yeah. They're not quite Mick Jagger old yet. I mean, poor Mick's touring and he's 78 years old, and they're going on a tour. I'm like, why would you? I don't want to see my mom get on the stage and sing. My mom's 78. I sure don't want to see Mick Jagger, but I don't think the Iron Maiden guys are that old yet. But
they're going to bring out the original.
They're pushing
Eddie.
it.
They're in their early 60s.
Oh yeah, it's still.
It's going to be
rock and roll's a young man's game. Come on, man.
Fight for your life.
These guys still bring it though. They write new material and it's great.
Okay,
that's true.
I just can't.
New song just released last week on Spotify. And you can find it on there, and it's a great song.
Really?
Oh, well, we got Jen Glazer in the house. Jen Glazer's talking about Iron
The video
Age.
for it, the video for the new Iron Maiden song, you guys would probably love it. It's the animation was done by two former Pixar employee animators, and they made it in the vein of like the old heavy metal movie. And
all right.
It's really well done.
We're gonna look for that.
Yeah, you guys should check it out.
Which reminds me, I gotta find the old heavy metal movie. I only had that in
Jennifer
VHS.
Glazer is the Iron Age Maiden.
She's a devil. She's my devilette. She's no Iron Age maiden. Come on. She's no maiden.
She could.
I'm just typing. Oh God. Oh, that was Zach. Zach hijacked her account. Zach,
okay.
You ass. How dare you? How dare you besmirch your wife like that? Well, you notice, Eric, that Zach pops in for the last 5 minutes of our show like usual. He doesn't give us any respect at all. No respect. Just pops in to make some hilarious comments, and then that's it. Yeah.
Did we watch Goddamn It, Zach?
No, I'm not watching that show anymore.
We should have, because you know who was a guest, right?
No, who was a guest this week? I missed it.
Jeff and
that guy. Well,
and I only know it because I was flipping through YouTube on our big screen TV again, which I got because Rage can actually see things on the screen as I'm doing it, and I'm flipping through it, and she's like, "Is that Goddamn It, Zach, in the upper right hand corner?" I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Wait, is that Jeff?" I'm like,
it was.
I think that's Jeff. I think I recognize Jeff's head. I'm like,
Cheesy had Jeff first, but
I have completely different conversations with you guys because especially when I'm in the conversation with Mike, we're gonna always gravitate to talking about Robert E. Howard for 45 minutes. Maybe bore some people, but it's we share this passion for this stuff.
And Skeeter's telling you about how to kill people, and you're or something. Yeah, that's
well, no, Skeeter. We talked actually that Goddamn It, Zach episode was all about the trials and tribulations of running a Kickstarter as a small publisher. So it was actually pretty cool, and I hope that we, shared some informative stuff for people who are thinking about doing it. Because I get a lot of messages from people saying, "Hey, I want to run a Kickstarter."
Your blueprints worked out really good, Jeff. You've never really had any problems with your Kickstarters. I know a couple of them were late here and there, but you've always been very open about why they were late, and everything you've ever done's been delivered. And I've been happy with. I backed many of your Kickstarters. I backed your dice last year. I backed I think I backed all the modules you've come out with. So I've been very happy with all the Kickstarters you've done.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever been more than a month or two late.
No.
And actually, in a lot of those cases, when I would say I say September delivery, in a lot of cases, the delivery actually did begin in September, but because it's a small family business and it takes 6 to 8 weeks to get all the orders out. Suddenly you're in, October or even early November by the time you get to the people at the bottom of the list.
Well, it's funny because I'm going to be rebooting. I'm going to be playing with my high school and college buddies that we finally agreed that I'm going to start running games. It's going to happen the end of the summer. And I threw it out to them, like, what do you want to play? And they were like, well, we want to play something that Tenkar is used to running, and that would be Swords of Wizardry. But we want something swords and sorcery. So I was like, well, I've got all of Jeff's adventers. And
nice.
We're going to be doing it once a month anyway. I can run that stuff episodic. And we're going to have a few guys from Texas in it. So it's going to be 5 or 6 players, drop in, drop out, if we can do it once a month. So I'm going to end, just to keep my sanity, because I don't keep notes when I run games, I'm going to give them bonus XP if they give me write-ups, and I'll probably publish all the write-ups on the blog side. So we'll get to see how this stuff plays out. So
you should do Rats in the Walls, because it's a first to third level module, and it's got 3 short adventures in it that can be episodic like that.
I actually, the only time I got to play Swords and Wizardry Light as a player, not as a GM or a DM, was Rats in the Wall. I played it out in Connecticut.
Oh, nice.
That was
very nice.
It was a great time. So yes, it go figure that. So I know it runs well, and I was like, I own all this stuff anyway, and I can and it's like, and I got them in print, but more importantly, I got the PDFs, so I can put them on my tablet and read in bed and not keep Rachel.
There you go.
So.
Perfect.
Well, good thing. Well, if you want to read some reviews about some astonishing swords and sorcerers products, you might want to hit a place called 10-Foot Pole. There's some great reviews by a guy named Bryce there of all the products that Jeff's been putting out over the years.
He does reviews of he's done reviews of things before they've even come out. He's amazing.
He hates everything Jeff does.
Yes,
I hate it.
It's so bad. It's
all for one simple reason, and I can boil it down to this: he was a player in one of my games many years ago, and he had an issue with everybody else at the table because they didn't like his brilliant idea, and he stormed off, made a scene. He eventually came back, and then he decided to start causing trouble with some of the other players and trying to be a disruptive player. And so the group of us just decided to ignore him and didn't listen to him at all. He eventually left. And so ever since then, he's been giving me horrible reviews. So he's basically a disgruntled player who.
He says in one review, the primary issue with all Northwind adventures is the ponderous writing and the layouts. He just does every single thing that is put up on Northwind. He absolutely trashes. So it just destroys any kind of, I mean, the guy's full of it when you read. I mean, just nothing is good. So it's just funny because
I've only read the first few, and he one of them he had so many facts wrong about the contents of the adventure that
makes you wonder if he's actually read it.
No, he didn't actually read it. He actually did it. I don't know if he still has it up, but in one of his things, he did a review of my actual game, and it was before the game was published.
Nice.
I've popped in on a couple of his reviews, comments with anonymous points that I just to beat him up a little bit because it's funny. His reputation took a big dive with me when I found out why he was slagging you. And then I was like, oh, it all makes sense now because
right.
Okay, that's why all your reviews are negative. So
right.
don't believe the 10-Foot Pole reviews. Everything I've ever read by Northwind's been exceptional. The layout's good. The writing's not ponderous. It's good stuff. So don't believe that stuff. But I have to give Jeff a hard time about that every time. Because, if you ever meet Jeff at a convention, ask him to tell you the whole story because he left a few things out.
It is, there's some funny details.
There's some funny details in the story, but that's why he always gets continually bad reviews on Bryce Lynch's
It's fine. I hope he never changes. I hope he doesn't change and decide to like my stuff. I would feel like something has gone wrong.
Well, you're doing something right because you keep doubling and tripling your amounts you get at Kickstarter. So something you're doing is right. It seems to be working. It looks like this is gonna be a very successful Kickstarter. And thanks, thanks for putting out different OSR things. And it's great to have quality OSR products because the OSR takes a lot of shit and gets beat up a lot. And so it's always nice to be able to point to something like a Hyperborea and the high quality of that. Old School Essentials was another. Frog Guy puts out a lot of super high quality material. Just things that are really high quality. So it doesn't look like we're a bunch of idiot guys drawing circles with crayons in our basement. I mean, this is actually quality stuff. So thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know what? We are kind of booked right now for special guests. I don't know if we need to have Bryce on, but
I've actually talked to Bryce before at a convention. He's an engaging guy. He has a blind spot when it comes to Jeff and Northwind, and I have a lot. And I've told him to his face, I have a lot of issues the way he does reviews because he is absolutely inconsistent how he does reviews. Because sometimes he loves it when there's lots of details, this and that. Other times he hates it when there's lots of details, and he loves it when there's just one sentence description. And then the next adventure, there was only a one sentence description. That's terrible. You need to tell me more. And he goes up and down and back and forth. And he loves it when it's really weird, it's really crazy stuff. And then the next one, it was too weird and too crazy. I didn't like it. So he's absolutely consistent in his reviews. So, and I've told him that to his face before. So, but he's an entertaining guy. He's just got a problem.
He had a problem with everybody at the gaming table when he played in my game.
He just doesn't recognize
he
success
was that
when he
guy,
sees it.
right? He was that guy that couldn't get along with anybody.
He just doesn't recognize success. He's jealous of your success, man. Come on.
I'm jealous of Jeff too. So I want to get a T-shirt that just says "ponderous" and work Jeff's table.
That line might have to be on a T-shirt. I'm gonna have to pull that out of this review, and say this whole review is pretty hilarious. Actually, I'm not gonna pimp his page. I really don't want anybody to go there, but God, this review is fucking hilarious. But yes, I'm gonna pull out ponderous writing and layout. And put that there, and put Northwind Games on the back of the shirt. Northwind Adventures, your place to go for ponderous writing and layout.
Too much.
Oh God, I'm crying. This is so fun.
Well, I think we have found our moment to punch out. Holy
yes.
crap.
Yes, this has been a long show, but it's been great because it's been with Jeff, so it seems like no time's passed at all, really.
Yeah, it's always a blast.
Folks, huge thanks to Jeff. Huge thanks to everybody who is watching live and has been throwing out comments throughout the show, including faux Jennifer Glazer. Because apparently it's
Zach instead, yes.
Oh, God help us.
Trying to be the more popular Glazer. Didn't work, Zach. Sorry.
God damn it, Zach. God damn it. As always, if you haven't subscribed, please, you could always use your subscription. We are going to be giving away drive-through RPG gift certificates when we hit 1,000 subscribers. So we want to do it before the end of the summertime. So let's get there. As always, we're in the midst of the world of the pandemic. None of us here are medical professionals. Not going to tell you what to do. Theoretically, you're all adults anyway. Use your common sense. Don't listen to the talking heads. Seek professional medical advice, and you know your situation better than anybody else. You can't help others if you are sick. Take precautions. Be safe, be well, God bless, roll those dice.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be back again tomorrow and Friday with Glenn Hallstrom. 8 o'clock.
Glenn!
Oh, nice.
Glenn. All right, folks.
Radio Grognard.
Yes.
Radio Grognard. We're gonna be Dungeons and Dragons and Discourse. So
he's great.
All right,
I love
folks.
Glenn.
All right, Jeff. Great to have you, man. It was good to see you again.
Thank you for having me, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you, Jeff.